Welcome back, you absolute lunatics. This is the Phantom Navigator. I am your host, and today we are going to learn how to hunt ghosts without looking like an easily fooled idiot. Now, I know I just recently, the other day, did one on Paranormal Equipment 101. The reason why I am revisiting this is I realized the last one I felt like a skeptic. It felt like I was a skeptic, which I am not. I fully believe in the paranormal. Been on many ghost hunts myself, paranormal investigations myself. Had many experiences myself. So that's not really fair to say. The whole point I was trying to make, and I am trying to make, is just keep in mind with equipment is don't assume everything is a paranormal event. It's not. I wish it was, but it's not. And I'm hoping to explain to you guys that things do interfere with it. And I hope you guys look out for that. Test stuff to make sure nothing else is interfering with that. So this is absolutely towards people who are trying to get into paranormal investigation for the first time, trying to decide on equipment. Now, you don't need a lot of equipment to start off with, especially if you're learning. You don't have to have the most expensive. You don't. You can just start with a couple of things, especially the first few things we go over is one things I at least recommend to start with. Now, in a paranormal, they're always coming out. Someone is always coming out with something new. So don't feel like you have to keep buying everything because all these other people have it. Just do what you can do. Learn how to use them correctly and make sure they're just not being interfered when doing paranormal investigations. It's all right if you make mistakes to begin with. I did. That's also one reason why if I found videos of my past investigations, I probably would not want to show them, is realizing I've probably made a lot of mistakes myself, wondering why people with me didn't educate me better at the time. So I don't know, they just kind of watch me let things interfere with it or not use them properly, or they just themselves just didn't know. I don't know. That's all. I don't want to bring other people into that either because it's not really, I don't do that. Grab a notebook, take your meds, and sit down. So you've decided you want to talk to the dead. Fantastic. Welcome to the club. You've probably bought a bunch of glowing plastic boxes with flashing LEDs off of the internet. And now you're standing in an abandoned asylum at 3 a.m. wondering why your $200 gadget is screaming at you. Is it a Victorian child named Barnaby trying to convey his tragic demise? Maybe, but more likely, it's the old wiring in the wall, your own cell phone checking for a software update, or a rogue microwave 3 streets over. Let's fix your technique before you end up on the internet making a fool of yourself. Today, we're doing Paralegal Physics 101, the equipment. Also, the reason why I want to make sure you guys are doing your due diligence and checking everything to make sure it is not something interfering is I don't want you guys, like I said, I don't want you guys assuming if it's not a paranormal event, I don't want you to assume it is, and then you post it online and people call you out for being a fake, which is, I know you probably starting off, that might not be your intention. I just want to make sure because people are mean, okay? They're going to call you out, say, well, it's probably this interfering with your equipment. And that's why I want to make sure you guys kind of know how to use it, what interferes with it. And it's, like I said, it's fine when you're starting out to make mistakes. It's fine. And what I said before in my previous one, I say stay skeptical. Again, I am a true believer. I just want to make sure you guys are making sure it is not something else causing your equipment to go off. So the EMF reader, which again is one of my first pieces of equipment. What it is, the EMF stands for electromagnetic field. The core theory here, and pay attention because this is the foundational, is that disembodied consciousness requires energy to manifest, move, or manipulate our reality. When an entity tries to anchor itself to our plane, it fluctuates the ambient electromagnetic field. An EMF meter measures these fluctuations in milligauss. So how do you use it? Well, first, establish a baseline first. The second, you step into a room, sweep it, walk the perimeter, wave the meter near outlets, breaker boxes, old refrigerators, and light switches. If a corner of the room spikes to 5.0 milligauss baseline, that is not a ghost. That is a terrible wiring. Mark it mentally, ignore it for the rest of the night. Ask for the intelligence control. Don't just wait for it to light up. Ask the entity to interact with a device on command. Light up 2 LEDs for yes, 1 for no. If it spikes randomly while you're talking about your grocery list, it's useless. If it spikes on cue when you ask someone is in the room, now you're cooking with gas. So interference and false positives. EMF meters are notorious liar catchers because everything bleeds EMF. Cell phones, cell signals, 4G, 5G, Wi-Fi polling, generate massive EMF spikes. Put your phone in airplane mode or leave it in the car. Dirty electricity, old wiring, transformers, and unshielded cables create static, high EMF zones. Walkie-talkies. If your teammate keys up a radio to ask for a snack, your EMF meter will explode. The spirit box, such as the SB7, SB11. I started out with the SB7. This is the fast scanner. A spirit box sweeps rapidly through FM or AM radio frequencies, usually at speeds of 100 to 300 milliseconds per step, creating a steady chop of white noise. The theory is that spirits can manipulate radio frequency, energy, and raw audio fragments to form coherent words or sentences through the white noise matrix. How should you possibly use it? Now, I know people vary on how they use it, but here's just some helpful hints with it. Use AM frequency when possible. FM radio is choked with music and talk shows. It's too easy to hear a fragment of a song and think it's a spirit telling you your mother's maiden name. AM is messier but clearer for raw audio manipulation. Conduct strict Q&A. Do not sit there for 20 minutes letting it run while you stare it into the dark. Ask direct questions. Pause for 5 to 10 seconds. Listen. The 3-word rule. A single radio snippet says die or run. It's just a radio bleed. If the voice speaks across 3 or 4 rapid sweeps, maintaining the exact same vocal tone and cadence to answer your specific question, that's an anomaly. Interference with them, radio bleed. If you are within 10 miles of a broadcast tower, you're going to get audio bleed. If the ghost is suddenly giving you local weather updates or traffic report snippets, just turn the damn thing off. Apophenia and pareidolia. Your human brain is pattern-seeking engine, desperate to find meaning in noise. You will hear what you want to hear. If you hear a noise and can't immediately agree with everyone in the room what it said without prompting, toss the sample out. Digital audio recorders, EVP captures. EVP stands for electronic voice phenomena. This is the undisputed king of evidence gathering. Spirits often communicate in frequency ranges the human ear cannot directly register in real time. Either ultrasound or infrasound or at amplitudes too quiet for our auditory processing. High sensitivity digital recorders capture these micro vibrations on memory chips. So how should you be using them? Tag your audio out loud. This is the number one mistake rookies make. If your stomach rumbles, say, "That was my stomach." If you knee pops, say, "Knee pop." If someone shifts their boots on the hardware floor, tag it immediately. Footstep noise, Dave, or whoever. If you don't tag it, you'll spend 3 hours in post-production convincing yourself a squeaky shoe was the demon of the house. External microphones. Never use the built-in mic if you can avoid it. Handling noise. The sound of your fingers slipping against the plastic body of the recorder sounds exactly like menacing whisper when amplified. Use a lavalier mic or set the recorder down on a soft surface. Interference and false positives. Background, HVAC and wind, air conditioning units, passing traffic, and outdoor wind friction creates lower frequency audio artifacts that can mimic human groans or murmurs when listened back at higher volumes. Infrasound vibration. Heavy machinery miles away can send low frequency vibrations through floors that your recorder picks up as low rumbles. REM pods. Unlike EMF meters, which passive measure existing fields, a REM pod creates its own localized 360-degree electromagnetic bubble around its telescopic antenna. If anything with mass or an electrical charge breaks that generated barrier, the pod lights up and emits an audible tone. It's essentially a high-tech boundary trap. So how should you use it? Place it in a doorway or controlled points. Don't put a REM pod in the middle of a blank room. Put it near entryways, staircases, or next to objects associated with hauntings. Trigger objects like old toys or personal items. Maintain distance. Once activated, back away at least 5 to 6 feet. Do not hover over it. Your own body's natural bioelectric field will trigger it if you get too close. So what can interfere with it? Walkie-talkies and cell signals. REM pods are notoriously sensitive to RF or radio frequency bursts. A cell phone searching for a signal will cause a REM pod to go wild. Drafts and static. High electrostatic environments like dry air rubbing against synthetic carpets can occasionally trip the antenna threshold. If you take away one thing from this episode, let it be this. Your job as an investigator is not to prove ghosts exist in every room you walk into. Your job is to aggressively try to prove that your equipment is lying to you. Rule out the draft, rule out the cell phone tower, rule out your teammate's loud stomach, strip away 99% of the noise, the glitches, and the cheap tricks. Because when you filter out all the garbage, that meter still spikes on command, and that recorder still whispers your name back to you in an empty room. That's where the real work begins. Now grab your clipboard and pay attention, because this is where 90% of so-called investigators completely shit the bed. Anyone can buy a box with shiny lights and scream into the dark, but if you don't control your environment, you aren't doing an investigation. You're just hosting a very expensive, high-anxiety game of hide-and-seek with your own paranoia. If you want your evidence to actually mean something when you step out of the shadows, you need an operational protocol. Here's your step-by-step survival guide to environmental control and debunking. Before you turn on a single recorder or flick a single switch, you need to eliminate human contamination. Humans are messy, loud, bioelectric disaster zones that ruin data. Kill the comms. All cell phones go in airplane mode or into a Faraday bag. Not vibrate, not silent, airplane mode. If someone says, "But what if my mom calls?" leave them in the driveway. A single pinging tower search will wreck your REM pod and send your EMF meters into a fake panic. Establish the clean zone. Designate one area outside the active investigation zones for your gear bags, coffee, and extra teammates. If someone isn't actively on a sweep, they stay in the clean zone, not pacing around overhead. No whispering in hallways. No heavy breathing near recording gear. Seal drafts and access points. Close all windows and external doors. If an interior door squeaks when a breeze hits it, latch it or wedge it. A door drifting open on its own looks spooky on video, but 99 times out of 100, it's just stack effect airflow pulling cold air through an unsealed frame. Do a baseline sweep. The control data. You cannot identify an anomaly if you don't know what normal looks like. The baseline sweep is your control experiment. You do this before turn off the light spikeness begins. Map the electromagnetic hazards. Walk every single room with your EMF meter at waist height and head height. Mark high field areas, that ancient fuse box in the basement. It's going to output 25 milligauss or 10 feet in every direction. If you sit on a couch right above that fuse box, you'll get headaches, hallucinations, and paranoia. That's not a haunt. That's EMF poisoning. Map it and avoid it. Map the thermal gradient. Take a laser thermometer or thermal camera and log the ambient temperatures of every room, windows, exterior doors, and uninsulated chimneys. Naturally drop room temps by 5 to 10 degrees. If you feel a sudden cold spot, check the architecture before you claim a ghost just walked through your soul. Document existing audio. Sit in total silence for 2 minutes with your recorder running. Listen to the house. Is it sump pump cycling every 12 minutes? Is there a train track 2 miles away that sends a 15 hertz sub-bass rumble through the floorboards? Log those sounds so you don't mistake them for spirit groans later. The aggressive debunk. Rule everything out. Please do this. When something weird actually happens, a knock, a spike, a door latching, your default brain state should not be, oh boy, a ghost. It should be, how am I being tricked right now? Replicate the anomaly. If a door slams, go over to it, pull it, push it, stomp on the floorboards next to it. Try to make it happen again using natural force. If you can replicate a sound or movement 3 times using normal physical means, it is debunked. Toss it in the trash. Check for infrasound sources. Infrasound, sound wave below 20 Hz, cannot be consciously heard by human ears, but it vibrates your eyeballs and chest cavity. It causes dread, panic, hyperventilation, and visual optical illusions. Seeing things like shadow figures out of the corner of your eye. Old ventilation fans, industrial AC units, and wind blowing through specific pipe shapes create infrasound. If a room gives everyone instant vertigo and nausea, test the airflow and structural resonance before calling an exorcist. Check for chemical environmental contaminants. Carbon monoxide poisoning causes confusion, auditory hallucinations, memory loss, and an overwhelming feeling of being watched. If an old house feels heavily haunted and everyone gets a headache within 20 minutes, get out of the building immediately and call the fire department. A gas leak will kill you long before a phantom does. So remember the golden rule of the navigator. An anomaly is only compelling after every single natural explanation has been beaten to death, dissected, and discarded. Strip away the drafts, the bad wiring, the leaky pipes, the cell signals, and the toxic mold. What's left standing in the quiet afterward? That's your target. Now let's talk about the absolute scariest entity you will ever encounter on an investigation: the human body. Your brain is an evolutionary dumpster fire. It is a 3-pound blob of electrified fat desperately trying to interpret a chaos universe. And half the time, it just makes stuff up to fill in the blanks. Before you start blaming demonology for your creepy experiences, you need to understand how your own meat suit can betray you. So I guess welcome to Biomechanical Delusions 101. Carbon monoxide, the OG haunted house maker. Let's start with the literal killer. Carbon monoxide is an invisible, odorless gas produced by failing furnace systems, cracked chimneys, and improperly vented heaters. What it actually does to you? CO displaces oxygen in your bloodstream. Your brain gets starved of fuel, which triggers severe paranoia, intense feelings of dread, spatial disorientation, auditory hallucinations, and the unexplained physical pressure on your chest. Back in 1921, a famous medical paper documented the H family, a family that moved into an old mansion and immediately started seeing shadow figures, hearing footsteps, feeling paralyzed in bed, and sensing an evil presence watching them. Everyone thought it was a classic demonic infestation. Turns out, it was a broken furnace was slowly poisoning them. Once the furnace was fixed, the demons magically packed their bags and left. The rule: if an entire family reports seeing full-bodied apparitions, smelling sulfur, and having headaches, Do not grab an EMF meter, grab a CO detector, or call the gas company before everyone goes to sleep and never wakes up again. Infrasound, the fear frequency. Human hearing cuts off right around 20 hertz. Anything below that is called infrasound. You can't consciously hear it, but your physical body sure as hell feels it. Waves between 7 hertz and 19 hertz resonate directly with human organs, the eyeball trick. At precisely 18.98 hertz, an infrasound wave vibrates the human eyeball at a natural resonant frequency. This causes static smearing in your vision, producing gray, moving, geometric shapes in your peripheral vision. That shadow person flitting across the corner of the hallway, that was literally your eyeball shaking in its socket because a nearby exhaust fan is broken. The dread response. Low-frequency acoustics trigger an ancient biological threat response. Your chest cavity vibrates, your heart rate spikes, your skin gets goosebumps, and your brain floods your system with adrenaline because it thinks it's a mega predator is lurking in the dark. Industrial fans, passing traffic, wind whistling through a specific chimney shape, or low-frequency pipe vibrations create infrasound. If a basement makes you instantly hyperventilate and feels like a predator is watching you, check the ventilation system. Toxic mold. Old, water-damaged houses are full of black mold, but we all know it's bad for your lungs. People forget what mycotoxins do to your brain. What it actually does to you. Prolonged exposure to toxic mold spores triggers systemic neuroinflammation. This leads to severe cognitive dysfunction, mood swings, anxiety spikes, balance issues, and you guessed it, visual and auditory hallucinations. If you're walking through a water-damaged abandoned house, breathing in airborne spores, clouds with a proper respirator, without a proper respirator, you're basically microdosing a neurotoxin. 20 minutes in, you're going to start hearing whispers in the drywall and seeing shadow dance in the corners. That's not a Victorian ghost. That's your brain cells panicking under chemical attack. Wear an N95 or P100 mask, you absolute chaos demon. Sleep paralysis and hypnagogic hallucinations. A demon sat on my chest last night and stared at me while I couldn't move. No, it didn't. Your brain's neurological handshakes just got out of sync. What it actually does to you. When you enter REM sleep, your brain initiates REM atonia. It literally paralyzes your involuntary muscles so you don't act out your dreams and injure yourself. Sometimes you wake up consciously before your brain turns off the muscle paralysis. You are wide awake, but your motor cortex is still locked down. To make matters worse, your brain is still partially stuck in dream state. Hypnagogic state. When your survival brain realizes it can't move, it panics. It projects your internal fear outward, creating intense visual, auditory, and tactical hallucinations. A dark figure standing in the corner, a heavy weight or entity sitting directly on your chest, breathing or whispering in your ear. It feels 100% real. It is utterly terrifying, but it's entirely an internal neurological glitch, not an entity. The takeaway: your brain is a biological survival machine programmed to see patterns where none exist and panic at the slightest anomaly. Before you assume a location is infested with malevolent spirits, ask yourself, is there a gas leak? Is the AC unit vibrating my eyeballs? Am I breathing toxic spores? Did I just wake up wrong? Eliminate the biology first. Eliminate the chemistry. Clear the meat suit glitches out of the equation. Only when the human body is ruled out can we start hunting what's left in the room. Stay sharp, wear your respirators, and check the furnace. This has been the Phantom Navigator. Class dismissed.